So the whole thing is why I started a podcast. We were kind of talking about that. I just really wanted to say the word cunt. On the radio. That's my minimum standard. If I can say cunt,
I have heard worse reasons for wanting to start a podcast, honestly.
No, that was my go-to.
At least you had a reason.
I started a podcast. I just want to say cunt.
Some people are like, I just want to hear my own voice on fucking radio. Fake radio, not even the real radio. Just I want to get. You know what you should do? Get that. You remember those Mr. Microphone thing? And
mine was the Talk Boy.
It would broadcast on like 88.2 or something. What? You never heard of that?
No.
Yeah. It was a microphone, and it was like basically the weakest FM transmitter ever. And the commercial made it seem like you could broadcast it into passing cars. But it was like you basically could talk into the transistor radio that you were holding anyway. It might as well have plugged into a fucking radio.
That is so amazing. That just reminds me of kids in the 70s talking into 80s talking into a fan making Darth Vader voices.
Dude, I remember my wife when we got our first computer. It was a Gateway. Came in the fucking cow box. And I remember we set it up, and she was fascinated with the microphone and the vocalizer, and she just sat there for hours going wee woo wah making dumb noises, watching the waveform happen on the screen and then playing it back and giggling like a maniac. And I was like, you are a special person, honey.
You know, I have to tell you that that's what I do in my spare time. I mean, I'm not even bullshitting.
That
on this
one Winamp visualizer does have some cool shit on it, you know.
Well, mine evolved to an extremely stupid level.
I haven't looked at that since the 90s, but I do remember being entertained by it.
You can still download the old Winamp, like the original model. It's almost like buying a classic guitar pedal. Like you need the fuzz face because it is, and then you open it up and you realize it's like a $5 Walmart speaker, and you're like, I can totally fucking build this and sell it for $900 to retards.
Oh my gosh.
So I got a funny story to tell you. We were talking off mic when Chris rudely interrupted walking into his own goddamn home
like a maniac,
fucking terrorist,
like a maniac.
It's like, I'm here with Ross McCoy. Come on, get the fuck out of here.
Come on, show a little couth.
Anyways, so recently I ended up going back to Chicago. All right, that's my home state. Okay. That's where I've done my comedy stint.
Okay,
I was the guy back in the early 2000s, the non-smoking bar. I'd smoke a cigarette because it's considered performing art. The guy the edgy comedian, and I'm so glad it's not that anymore. But I actually went up to Chicago. I was going to see a concert, and I knew that there was a comedy place up there called the L&L Tavern, and they did a little bit of stand-up when I was up there, and I was just hoping there was a fucking show that night. So I had just finished the best concert of my life, like the bucket list kind of concert.
Who was it?
It was Electric Wizard.
Okay.
They're kind of like a doom metal band, but they're the overlords of it.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like they're the the Beatles of their shit.
Okay.
So, so I went to this place, and if you've not been to Chicago, I'm sure Larry never worked this room. I could tell that from 100 miles away because I asked every comedian. I was trying to name drop from Florida. I was coming back, you know what I mean? And they're like, no, we don't know that guy. I was like, yeah, he must be working better rooms because I know this is the shittiest room in Chicago. Anyways, so and then that night, So I get there after the show, and I'm talking to the guy. I am doing comedy out of an old Gorilla amp. The mini one that you would buy as your first guitar combo.
Sure.
Like $50 for the amp, $50 for the...
How big of a room?
It's a big room.
Okay.
It's a big room.
Yeah.
It's a Chicago big room. So I would say maybe this whole apartment plus another 60 feet.
Okay. You know what I mean? Crank it up. You could do it with that.
Yeah. There was 300 people in there when I walked in that motherfucker. So everyone from the concert had exited to this place. This is the L&L Tavern in Chicago. It's my favorite place to do open mic. Okay. So, and this is my writing room. This is the room where I wrote my shit. You know what I mean? And for being a guy who did that in his 20s, like 18, 19, 20, and then having to go back to that fucking room and, kind of spry to the brand new comedians who were there. It was like a weird rendezvous. It's like Artie Lang going back to his the Comedy Cellar or something like that and doing a real early bit. You know what I mean? Just for kicks and shits and giggles. I ended up winning a $300 fucking open mic contest that was happening that night.
Damn.
Yeah, it was.
And they actually paid out the money?
And they actually,
That's a fucking
unicorn.
There's a unicorn right there. Oh my God. Take the 280 and be happy.
Yeah. Oh, I totally did. That was my whole compensation for going up to Chicago. I told my wife that and she goes, motherfucker, you are not funny. What the hell are you doing? And
yeah,
it was
but
just,
you should have seen these other assholes.
They were so bad.
They were so bad. They made me look good.
But there were so many people in the bar. But I was able to, being in the business, you know how to rope people in. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you do the Scotch egg thing. Like if they're not paying attention, Scotch egg's where you take it.
At this point, I have so many tricks and things, little gimmicks to just make people look at the stage, basically, because that's all hosting is really. At the end of the day, you want the people to be quiet and look at the stage and hear the next guy's name and then listen to them too. If the room is rowdy, you're not doing your job right. You got to settle them down.
Yeah,
people are coming in like fucking this asshole walking into his own house. That's
fucking dude.
That's like I said, my habit is if I got a mic in front of my mouth and somebody walks into the room, I say, welcome to the Bull and Bush. We're doing a comedy show. It's a fucking reflex. That was a memory. It's the thing that happens when I see somebody walking in the door with a mic in front of me.
The old bit that we used to use at the old L&L Tavern was, hey, look at this fucking guy coming in, because it was during that bro time. Everything was bro comedy.
Okay.
I know Orlando's had a different kind of growing up, because it is like a second San Francisco, with the gay community having such a strong basis here. And, and we don't have the wonderful train cars taking us to everywhere we need to go. But you guys always had like a very open, at least recently, I would say in the last like 20, 30 years, had a very openly friendly gay environment. Chicago was never that place, even though that I was living in a place called Boys Town where the gay community was thriving. So I've always been around like, people of gay nature, homosexual nature. And we would go to this really awful bar called the L&L Tavern in this wonderful gay community. And the gays would come and join us for the one night that they could be honestly offended and happy at the same time, because they didn't receive it in their day-to-day lives. So I did a lot of shock comedy back then, but it was so fun doing an old set, like shit I haven't done for 15 years. And winning a $300 fucking contest. And I was like, holy shit, this is 2019. And I totally didn't say anything about Harvey Weinstein. That's fucked up. What was it like? That's what I'm saying. Do you go back to like Drunken Monkey? Do you have that feelings like you used to?
It would be Other Bar. That would be the place for me, because that's where I first went up, and that's where like on any given night, any of a comedy, it could be a nice, hot, good room where you can have a good time and present your comedy, or it could be 3 or 4 drunk people and a bunch of comics, and it could be a nightmare. I've had both those scenarios play out at that place a number of times, and that would be it for me. But now Monday's so hard to get out. I used to love going to Other Bar. It was one of my favorite. Like I said, either good or bad. I love doing a set at Other Bar. I used to say I'd love bombing there, because it was just so fun to bomb, because you knew it was just happening because it was an off night or whatever, or just people were too drunk. There were so many ways to bomb at Other Bar. It was so fun. But I haven't been there in forever. Drunken Monkey came around a little bit later for me, right, so that's not really. Austin's, I guess, would be the other one. Other Bar and Austin's are kind of the ones that are still running that I kind of cut my teeth at. The other one that was really fun back then that isn't around was Larry's Room Taste. That was always fun.
God,
because there was never anybody at Taste. There was maybe like a couple couples, and then you have to, Larry and Luke that ran it with them, they'd have to extort the comics to go sit in there to fill out the room, and it ran so late on a Tuesday night. It was a place of nightmares sometimes. Did
you ever do Back Booth when Back Booth was doing it and Heather Shaw was running it?
I did a few shows at Back Booth. That's the place with like the booths and like they got the bar off. They got a separate bar off to the right area, and then the stage is kind of in the middle. Is that place?
Yeah. Bar in front. Venue, and then they just recently built a back bar. Now it's a different name.
I'm pretty sure the guy that
I need sponsorship first before.
I'm pretty sure the guy that runs that room doesn't like me, because one time I did a set there and the mic was popping like every time you talked, and and it had been doing it for like multiple comics, and there was a fucking guy in a sound booth right fucking there, I was like, all right, anyway, how about do your fucking job, sound guy? Twist the fucking knob or something and make this pop go away. And And like literally that quick. And just as a reaction to conditions in the room, like, and I thought I kind of made eye contact with the silent guy, and like it was funny to him maybe because I was just addressing an elephant in the room, but it was that was a paid show, and the guy that was responsible for the pay at the end of the night like took me to the side and was like, "Can't be abusing my sound guy like that, dude. We pay for that guy to be here and take care of things." And I was like, "Well, maybe you should do his fucking job then." And he did not like that, and
right.
And it got this guy wanted. It was one of those situations where I could tell he wanted to fight me. Like he kept saying stuff to me that I was, in the wrong, and like trying to provoke me into starting a fight with him so he could fight me. That's what he wanted. And I was just like, eventually I got tired of talking to him, and I was like, listen, keep the money, give it to the fucking sound guy and tell him to fucking study for next time. That was my exit line on that.
Oh,
it was like $20. It was maybe going to be like $12 to $20. So it wasn't like that big of a walk. I wasn't walking out on like an improv weekend check or nothing. Right. But I did tell the guy to take his money and shove it up his own ass, and essentially. So
holy shit.
But I've been back there since, like for other people's stuff. Like I did a roast there. Was it Shaw Smith's roast we did there and stuff?
Oh
God, I maybe almost killed a guy there one time because I think Pupo was on stage and a guy was heckling.
Oh shit!
Right. So Pupo was up there. A guy was heckling, and I was right behind the guy, and the guy was like maybe a seat back from the front on a stool, and he heckled Pupo like 4 times in a row, and every time he stood up off his stool, heckled Pupo, and then sat right back down on his stool without looking. And the 4th time he did it, I was like, the next time he does it, I'm going to take his stool and I'm going to make him fall on his coccyx and break his spine. And he didn't get up after that. And I was like coiled like a tiger waiting for it to happen for the rest of Pupo's set. And the guy didn't get up again. I was so fucking disappointed.
Oh, it's so fun talking to comics because they get it. It's just like the punk scene, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the silly, most neurotic, dumb shit that makes everything so connect and makes the scene stories.
It really is why comedy is fun. It's not so much the doing of the comedy, it's the hanging out with the comics afterwards. That really is the best part of comedy. And
I'm getting there with a lot of the new comics and some of the old ones, I've managed to be friendly with. I can see that guy fucking eating ass up there making fun of Pupo. I mean, Pupo doesn't fuck around either.
The guy, he was coming down hard on the stool too. He would have broken something. It was without question. And I was going to do it. I had made up my mind. And God saved me probably from assault charges that day. Whatever gods live in the dark corners of Back Booth.
Oh my God. My first experience with Back Booth, I got to tell you, it was... So I initially made contact with Heather Shaw. It was like the first, I would say, first 7 days of being interacting with the comedy scene at that point. Because I didn't pretend. This all came around all the same time. I'm going to start a podcast, going to start doing comedy again. He was in my midlife crisis minus a Harley. And I went to open mic, and when your joke doesn't hit, and you got to come up with something funny to say to make you segue to the next bit.
Sure.
Those were better.
Yes.
The bomb outs were better. And Heather Shaw comes out to me and she goes, well, you got the self-deprecating comedy. I mean, look at me. And that was the only joke that I needed. And I said, thank you for letting me use your room. I'll never come back. And I've never been back to Back Booth.
Have you ever read Steve Martin's book, Born Standing Up?
Yeah. No, I haven't actually.
He is very against those bailouts. And the reason is because that is, it relieves the tension, but it's not a joke. And his thing is let that tension build and build and build. Just do not, if the joke bombs, just go right into your next joke. Just let the tension ride into the next thing. And until it finally gets released by a joke.
I see the psychology behind that. It's very interesting.
That book is a fascinating read if you're into stand-up.
I am.
Yeah, and Steve Martin, he's so brilliant at so many things. But it was a really good book. And it's so funny because it is insightful and helpful. But at the end of it, he decides to stop doing stand-up. So it is like, what can I do that Steve Martin hasn't done? And then he decided to stop doing this. So where does that leave me? It's such a great book, but it is depressing to finish because you realize that maybe the best